was that?
2010's Amnesia: The Dark Descent was a monument of horror storytelling in games. I remember the first time playing it. It was incredibly immersive in its environmental storytelling as well as dialogue storytelling. Now, fast forward a decade later and we have Frictional Games' follow-up to a horror classic. I should also mention there was a second game in the series developed by outside developer The Chinese Room called Amnesia: A Machine for Pigs, which most found to be sort of not as good as the first one, and a lot of people actually felt it to be terrible, but I personally thought it was a vastly underrated game. This is, however, the proper follow-up to Dark Descent, but is it as monumental as The Dark Descent? Let's find out. In Amnesia Rebirth, you play as Tassie Trianon in the year 1937, set 100 years after the events of the first game, The Dark Descent. And at the beginning, Tassie starts out in a plane going over a desert. And as you're talking to your husband, the plane starts to experience turbulence, eventually leading to a crash. Tassie wakes up from the crash to find that her husband and all the other passengers are nowhere to be seen. In search of said passengers, Tassie leaves the wreckage to try to find her husband and the others. I won't go into too much detail regarding the story as to not give away too much, but from then on it just gets weirder and weirder and in the same vein of other games in the series. Now, like I said, without giving away too much, as you search the desert, you're looking for shade as the sunlight is harmful for your sanity meter, much like the first game, which we'll get into in a bit. You come across a cave which Tassie enters upon the player's input, and from there you learn that there is a creature in the cave from one of the notes left behind. Speaking of notes left behind, this game is a great game if you like reading notes and journals left by people from the past perspective. It's very similar to Dark Descent in that matter, except this time the lead character Tassie is much more vocal during the game, and it seems like Frictional Game had a lot more budget than they did 10 years ago. Overall, just like The Dark Descent, the story is very immersive and full of plenty of twists and turns along the way. For the sake of keeping this review as spoiler-free as possible, I won't go into too much detail on the story, but let me just tell you, not only does it live up to The Dark Descent's lore and storytelling, but I firmly believe that they have exceeded The Dark Descent, especially with the budget behind the voice acting and writing. The game plays much like the original game, in which you must keep your sanity meter from going up by staying in lit rooms, using either a match to light torches on walls, or a lantern that uses gas. Rebirth throws a new mechanic into the mix called Fear Meter. There is a specific way to reduce your Fear Meter, but again, not going into spoilers, but it's very clever with how it works. The puzzles are as challenging as ever, and there are a lot of them in this game. Some will have you mixing up ingredients to craft a special item for the story, whereas others are more environmental, which you will need to hone your perception to solve. Overall, the gameplay is fun and also engaging, not to mention terrifying as hell, making it a must-play for survival horror veterans and newcomers to the genre alike. The atmosphere and sound design is on par with Frictional Games' previous work. From footsteps creeping about in tunnels and caves causing shivers to crawl up anyone's spine, to candles being lit and extinguished, the sound is just great in this title. However, I found some of the music to loop too much, and you could almost tell when you were triggering certain background music and effects, making some of the sound design feel a little dated, but that's a very minor nitpick in an otherwise fantastic package of a game. Overall, Amnesia Rebirth is a superbly done follow-up the franchise deserved. The game feels immersive and it's definitely extremely scary, not to mention incredibly fun. I would have to say this game deserves a 9 out of 10, and so far it's one of my favorite games to come out this year. Don't overlook this one, folks. If you enjoyed this review, please leave a like, and if you would like to see more from the Lunar Review, please subscribe for continuous game coverage. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.